So now we will move back to the regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Trustees of Thursday, October 16th, 2025. Clerk Stenzel, please call the roll.
Trustee Koss? Here. Trustee Marshaska?
Here.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Here.
Trustee Gallegos?
Here.
Trustee Evans?
Here.
Trustee Mateo?
Here.
Manager Francis?
Here.
Attorney Pickrell?
Here.
Also present, Clerk Stenzel.
President's report, we have several upcoming meetings. On October 20th, the Historical Commission regular meeting, the Village Hall at 6:30 p.m. October 22nd, Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting, Village Hall at 6:30 p.m. October 27th, Parks and Recreation Board regular meeting, 1 Burling Road at 6:30 p.m. November 3rd, Preservation Commission special meeting, Village Hall, 6:30 p.m. And our next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is November 6th, Village Hall at 6:30 p.m. Trustee reports. Are there any trustee reports this evening? Trustee Marshaska.
Yes, given that we will not be meeting again before the next exciting activity that the Riverside 150 Committee has coming up, I thought I'd just take a moment to talk about November 1st, the day after Halloween. We are conducting a little riff on Chicago's Open House Chicago by doing open houses of all of Riverside's historic churches. So all 6 of our churches will be participating and opening their doors to free docent-led tours from noon to 3 o'clock on that Saturday. And our business community has gotten involved and jumped on board with this, and several of them are offering discounts to those who present their tour booklets following the tour and then through the end of the year. So it's going to be a lovely event, a great way to get to know the architecture and the history of our community, and we hope you are all able to participate and join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other trustee reports? Manager's report.
A few items this evening. The first item is the village has launched a community survey to gather feedback regarding interactions with village staff and services. We welcome all perspectives, both positive and constructive, as they provide valuable insight to help us enhance our service to the community. The survey is now available on the village website and may be completed by anyone that interacts with the village. It can be accessed directly online or by scanning the QR code displayed at village facilities. Thank you to everyone for taking the time to share your feedback with us. Next item is property taxes still have not been sent out. Typically, the schedule for property taxes, the due date for the second installment is August 1st. We believe that the bills will be sent out in early November with a tentative deadline in early December, but are awaiting an update from the county. It is important to note that property taxes represent over 50% of our general fund revenue, but due to our prudent financial policies, the village remains in a strong financial position. There are some other communities that are evaluating whether to take out a line of credit because of cash flow issues. Riverside is not in that position. Social media stats. So as the board is aware, for the past month and a half, we've had a full-time communications manager, and it has been very much shown with our engagement online. In September, which was her first month of full-time status, our followers on Facebook increased by 7.4%. Our fans increased by 9.6%. Our post shares increased by 240%. And our post impressions increased by 216%. Additionally, post likes increased by 155%. So I'll continue to give the board different status updates on our social media. Facebook seems to be the best way to engage the community, but we also have our other different social media pages, which will continue to ramp up and continue to get more engagement there. Next item is the Olmsted Sewer Separation Update. So as you can see, there are large message boards that are out displaying that Riverside Road will be closed next week. thank you to Cook County for loaning us those boards for the next week so that we can make sure that everyone that's traveling through Riverside or utilizes Riverside Road regularly is aware of that closure for next week. Remaining items for them to complete this week, they have to install the remaining section of water main. They will be beginning working on outfall structure that's adjacent to the river, because if you'll recall, this is a sewer separation project in addition to a water project, in addition to a resurfacing project. It's been always our approach that we touch the streets once to do all the things that are underneath and above, so that those areas are handled. Also, there is sidewalk restoration on Olmsted between Harlem and Delaplane. Next week, Riverside Road will be closed, as I mentioned. Sewer crew will begin installing the outfall structure and begin the installation of the 48-inch sewer. Tuesday, they will disconnect the 4-inch water main on Olmsted and Riverside Road. Construction notices will be delivered to Riverside residents that are impacted. Wednesday through Friday, they will continue to install the 48-inch storm sewer that's crossing Riverside Road and installing the different lateral connections on Riverside Road. Sidewalk restoration on the south side of Olmsted will be occurring between 269 Olmsted and Herbert. Riverside Road will be closed during the construction hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We have posted a map online, and so to reflect the rerouting of traffic flow. Additionally, similar to what we did when First Avenue was shut down, we will put in a notification to Google Maps of the street closure. We found that to be pretty effective with detours, since a lot of different travel apps seem to feed off of Google Maps for different closures, traffic notifications, and things of that sort. So we will do that again this time. Then the week of October 27th, sewer crew will continue installing the 48-inch storm sewer down Olmsted Road. A second crew will then begin water services on Gage Road or Blackhawk Road, depending on IEPA approval of the remaining portion of the water main on Gage. So there's a lot of different moving parts that perhaps residents don't realize, that different permits and approvals that we have to get as we're doing these different projects, even though they're in Riverside, whether it's MWRD approvals or IEPA. So that is the update on that project. We are going to try to maximize the good weather that we are having for the remainder of this year to get as much done this year so that we can close up, patch up the roads, and then finish up with our resurfacing next year. Anything that is not completed, sewer water main related this year, would then be completed next year before the resurfacing is completed. And finally, I wanted to congratulate some employees on work anniversaries that occurred in September and October. Matt Buckley, 37 years. Jim Lazansky, 22 years. Eric Katzen, 19 years. Fabian Navarro, 18 years. Brian Greenenwald, 18 years. Kevin McMahon, 10 years. Elizabeth Nelson, 10 years. Dave Pierdock, 9 years. Megan Siska, 8 years. Aiden O'Hare, 3 years. Dan Williams, 3 years. Robert Kowalski, 2 years. Liam Byrne, 2 years. Keegan Daly, 2 years. And Daniel Madden, 2 years. That is all I have.
Thank you. And thank you to all those employees who work so hard for our village. Next on the agenda is public comments for non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to speak about matters that are not included on the agenda. The agenda, as those items are brought up, you will have the opportunity to speak on the agenda items. Please note that all public comment is limited to a total of 30 minutes or 5 minutes per person. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? There are none, so I will ask Clerk Stenzel to read the consent agenda.
Approved voucher list of bills, October 16th, 2025. Approved Village Board of Trustees special meeting minutes, October 2nd, 2025. Approved Village Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes, October 2nd, 2025. Review and file Board and Commission minutes. Preservation Commission regular meeting minutes, August 14th, 2025. Riverside TV Commission rescheduled regular meeting minutes August 18th, 2025. Sesquicentennial Ad Hoc Committee rescheduled regular meeting minutes August 18th, 2025. Economic Development Commission regular meeting minutes July 9th, 2025. Review and file department monthly reports. Finance Department, August 2025. Police Department, September 2025. Fire Department, September 2025. Public Works Department, September 2025. Community Development Department, September 2025. A resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the village manager to enter into various purchase orders for fiscal year 2025. And an ordinance amending the village code relative to dogs and cats and amending a fee schedule.
Do any of these items need to be removed from the consent agenda? There being none, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion and second. Clerk Stenzel, please call the roll.
Trustee Koss.
Aye.
Trustee Marshaska.
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Trustee Galagos.
Aye.
Trustee Mateo.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Department, board, and commission reports. We have a brief Parks and Recreation report this evening from Director Malchiotti.
Village Trustees, Manager Francis. Wanted to provide a quick update on some of the events and initiatives within the Parks and Recreation Department. Not to worry, there is still time to sign up for our haunted house at the Scout Cabin this Saturday. You must register for this event. It's only $5 a person, and we have two options, less scary and more scary, based on how adventurous you are. The registration deadline is tomorrow at noon, so don't miss out. Also, the department hosted open house and stakeholder meetings for the Turtle Park replacement project on Tuesday evening. Hitchcock Design Group led the engagement session, and we received some very insightful feedback. We also had students in our before and after school program draw their perfect playground, and it was as creative as you might expect. But we want to make sure that we're getting as much feedback as possible and giving everyone an opportunity to provide input for this project. So starting Monday, there will be a survey posted on the village website, social media platforms, and delivered through the e-flash system, where the community can provide feedback and be a part of designing this exciting project. And lastly, program coordinator Megan Siska and myself met with District 96 leadership team yesterday, which included the superintendent and principals of each school. This communication is crucial to our commitment to provide the highest quality program to the community. We exchanged feedback unique to each school, and Megan discussed and detailed the STEAM-based projects that we have conducted, as well as future curriculum ideas. We are very pleased to have this level of communication with the school district to not only strengthen our program, but also our partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments regarding Director Malchiotti's report? None? I understand we also have a, Clerk Stenzel has an update on items related to the Road to 2050 plan.
Thank you. So trustees Marsh, Ozga, Evans, and I have worked with our consultant, Nutter Consulting, on the Energy Action Plan. Happy to announce the draft Village Riverside Energy Action Plan is now available for public feedback. The Riverside Energy Action Plan is a community-driven roadmap that outlines practical actions that residents, businesses, and the village can take to improve energy efficiency, expand renewable energy, reduce costs, and build a more resilient, sustainable future. The plan includes stakeholder feedback and results from the energy needs assessment. Input received about the draft by Friday, October 31st will inform on the final version of the plan. The current timeline for the final plan coming to the board for approval is the November 20th meeting. To view the plan and the feedback form, as well as different sustainable initiatives and goals, residents can go to the Village of Riverside website under Government and Green Initiatives. We'll also be sending out social media posts and e-flashes as well so that we can reach as many people as possible. Additionally, the Landscape Advisory Commission has seasonal updates that often include information about sustainable activities. For example, one of their fall articles is Leave the Leaves, where they explain the many benefits of mulching or composting leaves instead of bagging them, as it provides environmental benefits, prevents flooding, And finely chopped leaves can actually help fertilize your lawn the following year. This can be found under the Landscape Advisory Commission's website. We also posted about it on social media today.
Thank you, Clerk Stenzel. Any questions or comments for Clerk Stenzel? Does anyone else have a department, board, or commission report this evening? There are none. Pending business, continued discussion regarding the Des Plaines River Trail South Extension. Manager Francis.
Thank you. After our previous discussion and the board wanting guidance and myself to have a dialogue with representatives from Cook County, which I did so, I wanted to provide the following update with the hopes that the board can provide some guidance as it relates to the materials and the alignment, so phase 1 engineering can be wrapped up as it relates to this project. So when I spoke to Cook County, they stated that their Department of Transportation and Highways does want this project to be completed, and they did provide $300,000 to supplement the Phase 1 engineering to complete the entire study, inclusive of all the sections that are in Brookfield, Lyons, Riverside, and Riverside Township. The county can provide motor fuel tax funds to assist with paying our portion of the 20%, both for First Avenue and for 31st Street. Typically, they have worked with other communities doing similar projects where they would pay half of the 20%, so essentially 10% would be paid by the county, the remaining 10% would be paid by the community. However, in situations where that 10% is still a large burden, another opportunity or option is to submit for an Invest in Cook grant, and these types of projects are in alignment with the goals of Cook County, and so they would score higher as it relates to getting additional funding should that be needed. As it relates to locating the path within the Forest Preserve area that's adjacent to Wabansie, the county, the area is currently under restoration, and typically they don't like to add to their impervious surface coverage, and so that's another item in which we would have to have a greater dialogue, so that's just a discussion point when we start talking about the alignment and where the board would like to see that be. It is the goal to submit for funding in 2026. However, the Phase 1 engineering must be completed, which includes the alignment and the connector path, which is on 31st Street. If we're not able to apply or get these different items finalized, and that just pushes the schedule, which then increases the cost of the project as a whole. The path connection, which is 31st Street, is part of a larger goal of making connections in the Lower Des Plaines area. The path will connect Riverside to the Salt Creek Greenway, the Illinois Prairie Path, and eventually to the Centennial Trail. Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways is pursuing a Phase 1 study for the Central Des Plaines River Trail from 26th Street, and it would start to the start of the Illinois Prairie Path. So completion of this project's Phase 1 engineering in 2026 would indicate a stronger project readiness for grant opportunities such as ITEP in the fall of 2026 and Invest in Cook in 2027. And so what project readiness means is basically you're able to move to those next phases. But Phase 1, as you'll note, like whenever we're applying for ITEP for ourselves or STP funding, that Phase 1 engineering is crucial to moving that project forward and seeking alternative funding. So that has been my conversation with them. Currently, with the estimates for 31st Street, the village contribution would be, at the 20%, would be $152,600. And then for the First Avenue portion, it would be $365,000. So in total, for the project, we would be looking at $517,600, which is that 20%. However, if we were to get grant opportunities, at a minimum, sharing that cost with the county, that would decrease to 50% of that value. and then we could seek other opportunities for funding those pieces. So I would ask Planner Siren to come up if the board is comfortable and discuss some of those questions that we had at the previous meeting, because we do need direction in order for the county to finalize different pieces of the phase one. I will share with you that I've been in regular contact with Brookfield's village manager about this project, keeping them in the loop of my conversation, because they also have a vested interest of the funding for 31st Street and that cost sharing. But beyond that, also doing regular check-ins, because this project has gone on for quite some time. And so we want to make sure that we're moving the project forward. And so we will be having regular check-in meetings with not only Riverside and Brookfield, but also with the county to help with the coordination of this effort. It's similar to what I had set up with MWRD and Army Corps of Engineers, because when you have a lot of different organizations working together, to have those regular check-in meetings become crucial to the project progressing.
So before Planner Siren gets into the details, I would like to just kind of summarize where we're at as a board. At our last meeting, there were a lot of concerns raised about the overall cost to the village. We thought that it was prohibitive and would be difficult for us to finance. And we also thought that that as a regional project, that other regional players should have a bigger role in the financing of this. What Manager Francis has told us tonight is that appears to be a strong potential that we could reduce our costs, our portion, by half, if not more. Again, nothing's promised, but I think the first question that the board needs to answer is that a sufficient assurance for you to feel like we can move forward with answering these detailed questions and enter into the phase two engineering? So if the board is okay with that, we can go into the details now.
Well, I do have a question. So you did
Yeah.
talk to Brookfield and North Riverside. How about Lions?
North Riverside is not part of the scope of this project.
Okay. Have you talked to Lions about this since they're
So-
in the lower south portion of it?
Brookfield is coordinating that. My understanding is that they have been engaged with Lions. Lions has said that they are open to moving the project forward. But because Brookfield is the primary on this project and doing all the coordination, Riverside has not necessarily had that conversation.
Okay.
So I see, yes,
So our portion would be $250,000 minus any grants, right? So how much would the other parties be kicking in, the same, like Brookfield?
No, so Brookfield, because they have a longer run down 31st Street, their contribution would be higher for that 20%. I think it's in here, hold on just a second. It was in the last week, here it is. So for Brookfield, their 20% share from Prairie to McCormick is $772,000, and then from McCormick to Gulfview is $533,000. So we're talking, they're going to be over 1.3 million once we're done adding all of these up for them. Riverside has a shorter run, but this connection along 31st makes some very important connections for Brookfield. But as it relates to that cost sharing that the county had mentioned through motor fuel tax funds, that would apply also to Brookfield.
Well, I just want to say that I appreciate that you had this conversation with the county, because it really does significantly, move the needle for us anyway. I mean, I don't know what, I see members of the public out here tonight. I don't know what they're going to say about this or how they're going to weigh in, but I just feel that there's a tremendous value in connecting with these larger bike paths and systems. So thank you for having that conversation.
so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that the board is prepared to proceed. No promises, from either side, but
Be open to it is what we're.
open to it, yes.
Open to it, yes.
Just as a correction, so completing the phase one does not obligate us to move forward with the project. So if it comes back and it's bid and it's completely out of the realm of possibility financially, there's always the opportunity for us not to move forward. And the county has made that very clear to us as well. It's just getting the phase one done and completed helps us leverage future grant opportunities.
I mean, I remember this was discussed with the village board 15 years ago during the Gorman years, and it was the Sustainability Council that asked for a bike path to go through Riverside, and the benefits of that it would go through our downtown, and we would have that circulation. So I would like to have, later on down the road, a discussion about those paths on our property, having signage that directs people to our downtown, et cetera, so that we can benefit from that economically.
I'm for moving this conversation forward. I just have one quick clarification. When you were talking with Cook County, can you just clarify for the board and for the public? We understand that we're not held to the phase one engineering if it comes into it, but is it also dependent on the other connectors as well? So if Brookfield or Lyons doesn't go through with their end of the trail, does that affect us as well?
So ideally, obviously, they want, Lyons is the one that, my understanding, a little bit less engaged than Brookfield and Riverside. And that's a small piece of that connector. I think really the linchpin is Riverside and Brookfield. So if either one of us are saying, financially we can't do this or we can't move forward, then that pauses the project, right? Because a lot of it goes onto our property. Whereas the Lyons alignment, some of it goes into IDOT right of way.
Can you just clarify where, in your opinion, where's Brookfield at with this? Is their board moving forward with this?
Brookfield is having similar conversations, and so that's why when I've been engaging the county on these conversations and having these different meetings, I've been looping Brookfield in to make sure that, one, there's the investment and the financial wherewithal should they only get partial funding for their 20%. And so Brookfield, from my understanding, they were very focused on the 31st Street element because that was very important to them to make those connections to their other paths.
Thank you.
The next is, Planner Simon is going to get into the details, but I would ask the board, I know there's public comments on this item. Would you rather hear the public comments now or after Planner Siren in that
I
discussion?
think after planner assignment, so the public might change what they might want to say, give them that
Okay.
opportunity.
Ann?
As Manager Francis said, there are area issues of materials and alignment. We'd appreciate your direction. Along the 31st Street path, asphalt is proposed that's included in the estimated construction costs. Another option would be to require that new path to be made of exposed aggregate concrete, which would be consistent with the pathways in the interior of the village. Currently along the First Street path is asphalt. One note is that this pathway would be located in the IDOT right-of-way and Brookfield Zoo property, although it's within Riverside's jurisdiction. So the current plan is to make an asphalt pathway. We want to double check to make sure that the board is comfortable with that. As an alternate option, we could require exposed aggregate concrete.
Trustees?
Asphalt?
As am I.
On Riverside property?
Well, it's not, it's incorporated Riverside, but it's IDOT or Cook County Highway.
It's in the IDOT right-of-way, and part of it's on the Brookfield Zoo property, and then this is the section along 31st Street specifically.
Yes, that would be okay.
And your other request for alignment materials is along Wabansie Road. Currently, what was proposed in the construction, currently what's existing is a 5-foot wide exposed aggregate concrete path along Wabansie Road, adjacent to the Forest Preserve property. What was proposed in the initial design for phase one was a 10-foot wide asphalt path. Now that would be within the village's jurisdiction. That would replace an existing concrete path with asphalt, it would be wider, it'd be 10 feet wide. But staff did express concerns that that would be inconsistent with the village's practice of using exposed aggregate concrete, although it would be a greater expense. It depends on your bid, and it depends on a number of factors. It could be 2 to 3 times the cost to use exposed aggregate over asphalt. So option 1 would be to go ahead with the plan as proposed by the project and replace that existing exposed aggregate concrete path with the asphalt path. The other option would be to replace it with a 10-foot wide exposed aggregate concrete path. Of an important note is right under that path is a water main. So any work that's done on that water main would require removing the pathway and then replacing it and repairing it. So the village would want to consider some sort of maintenance agreement and construction agreement for whoever installs it. Option 3 is to locate the path directly on the street on Wabansie Road to maintain the existing exposed aggregate concrete pathway and put pavement markings on Wabansie Road so that the pathway would officially run down Wabansie Road. So people would be riding their bikes on the road. This would require adding pavement markings and likely eliminating on-street parking that's adjacent to the pathway. The roadway is just not wide enough to safely have folks go down there and have cars parked. Another option, which Manager Francis mentioned, is locating the path on the adjacent property, which is owned by the Forest Preserve. The Forest Preserve said the path shouldn't be located there because it's an active restoration area, and the pathway would exceed the Forest Preserve's impervious surface limits for that area. Staff felt that would be a good location for that. Oh, it's not on there? It's not moving for me? All right. Staff felt that would be a good location. The path along on the other side of Wabansie already goes through that area, and it would be in an area that was maybe a little more bucolic, and that would keep it off of village property, and that way an asphalt path wouldn't be inconsistent in that area.
Trustees?
All right, I do have a question. Will this be accessible for emergency vehicles? In case there is an accident that goes out there, like someone ride their bikes and twist their ankle, ambulances can drive down there? I remember that being an issue with the Swan Pond pathway.
Because of it's a short run and it's adjacent to Wabansie and First Avenue, I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah.
Are there other sections of the path that are located on roads, like option 3, or would this be an anomaly?
That are located, I'm sorry, what was?
So for option 3, where you say locate the path on the street on Wabansie and add the pavement markings and eliminate the on-street parking, would that, would be an anomaly for that, or are there other sections of the path that work like that?
For this extent, for this south extension that we're talking about, the extent of this, this would be an anomaly.
Okay.
I can't speak to the rest of the Des Plaines trail system, and they may have on-street
Okay.
use there.
I'd like to hear from public comment. Oh,
I'm still in favor of option 4. I know the Forest Preserve is not keen on it, but as Director Siren said, half the path in that area is already going through the Forest Preserve District. And if I'm a bike rider, I would probably want to be around trees rather than concrete. So, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't shut that down 100%, did they?
So I was speaking with Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways, not the Forest Preserve. They though stated that based on the topography, based on it being an active restoration site, that the path could not go there. They haven't completely closed the door, but it's pretty close.
Even though the north-south part of it is on the property.
I did point that out to them as well. They said based on the surveying that was done, where the placement of the various trees were, they felt that this was the best location in proximity to everything that was needed from their perspective. Based on the different dips in the topography in that area, that was their concern of relocating it, because then grading may need to be required and things of that sort, so.
I would just say that between options 2 and 4, that the other parties to the agreement might be concerned, as I would be concerned about what a 10-foot wide exposed aggregates section of path would do to the project costs. If one were to take option 4 and locate the asphalt path, which is currently planned for village property, and put it on the forest preserve property, it shortens the amount of the distance. So it would be a lesser cost.
The thing that they pointed out to me is the tree line and the topography in the area that is currently under active restoration, that they're not going to be running a path through that area. And since that area is pretty much, in their words, not mine, all under active restoration based on the work that they've been doing, that it doesn't appear as though there would be the appetite to allow for the path to run through that green space.
It's not an option. It shouldn't, it's not an option. It's just
Yes.
called that.
If the board wants me to go back to them saying they prefer option 4, but give me an alternative, if they say that it can't be done, that would be helpful. Knowing that it could be that the secondary option would be the one selected.
I would add one thing to consider. Typically when we're asked about a sidewalk, it's become an absolute in this village, exposed aggregate, period. We 10 years ago, that board had a discussion and considered regular broomed concrete or whatever, and we made that decision, and in my view, there's no going back from that decision when it comes to sidewalks, and we've stuck to that. I would point out, however, in this case, this is a unique location. It's on the opposite side of the street where there are no houses. There is a sidewalk on the north side of Wabansie, or is there? There's not. Okay, I stand corrected. There's not a sidewalk on the north side. But regardless, it is a unique location in that it's, for all appearances, it appears to be in the forest preserve. And pathway through there is going to appear to be part of the regional pathway system, not necessarily a local sidewalk. That makes me less concerned about deviating from our policy. And then I think, perhaps the consistency of the materials too matters to users. I'm not sure. Just things to consider.
This is technically within the expanded boundaries of our national landmark district, though. I mean,
That's true.
the National
Yes.
Park Service just expanded the
Right.
boundary to include this
Right.
area.
Yes.
Based on historical analysis. So, if that is at all a factor that the other parties to the agreement would consider, it makes it harder for us to say, oh, we can just waive it off, because we can't just waive it off. So, hopefully they would reconsider, or maybe there's another way that this path could, go without disrupting their topography too much. I mean, if you've had the conversation with the Department of Transportation as opposed to, like Brookfield and the Forest Preserve proper, maybe it just needs another meeting.
I would ask for an alternative. I can certainly engage them in that, but that's why I would prefer, so that we can get some conclusion to these different pieces, so that they can finalize some of that phase 1 of the project, because besides the funding, which I feel like we're in a very good place, and that was a huge item. This is a big piece. This small piece is a big piece that's holding up the project itself. They pointed out the First Avenue path that is within our landmark designated space, and that's asphalt as well. And so, granted, that's an IDOT right-of-way. That was kind of an intergovernmental collaboration between us, North Riverside, the county, and the state to get that path completed. But they're also looking at that and saying, well, that was included as part of your recent review of your landmark designation as well.
Anything else from trustees? You want to go for public comment at this time?
No.
Okay. Any public comment on this item?
Hello, everybody. I'm Valerie Kramer and Paulo Oppenheimer, Riverside resident and founder of Ride Riverside, a community bike group. First, I want to thank the village board and staff for supporting a simple idea that Riversiders could gather every second Friday at 6 p.m. at the train station to take a leisurely ride around town and appreciate the natural beauty of Riverside. Since starting Ride Riverside and leading 16 rides with hundreds of neighbors over the past 2 years, I've grown to love this community even more. Thank you to Village President Pollock and trustees who joined our Trustee Appreciation Ride in September, and to the village for providing police support to make our rides safer and more accessible for all ages. Sergeant Panic, who rides his police bike with us, deserves a special shout out. And thank you to the board for including funds in the budget proposal to improve bike safety so all parents can feel confident letting their kids ride bikes to school. So I'd planned to come to this meeting just to say thank you, but since you guys are talking about bike stuff twice, I just wanted to lend my support to this project and not go into the nitty-gritty details of concrete versus, or exposed aggregate versus asphalt. So I remember the first time I rode my bike with my son across the swinging bridge toward Riverside Lawn. My son was still a toddler then, riding in a bike trailer. I was new to the area, and I gasped at how suddenly I was transported into a beautiful wooded area. And I thought the path would stretch on for miles, but after only a few minutes, it ended abruptly on a side street. And I remember thinking, that's it? Riverside deserves safe, connected ways to bike and walk. Extending the Des Plaines River Trail would immediately open access to the Brookfield Zoo, Salt Creek Trail, and other things that we've mentioned eventually, and neighboring towns. And then the 55 miles of the Des Plaines River Trail, it nearly goes to the Wisconsin border. It would even eliminate that feeling of disappointment from newcomers like me after their first time across the swinging bridge. Positioned at the southern end of a 55-mile trail system, our community would gain far more than we would give. Residents would obtain access to the entire network, while the rest of the region gains only a short extension. And beyond recreation, this trail is also an economic investment. It would provide residents more options for getting around, helping families save money on transportation, and improving access to jobs and nearby communities without relying on a car. Property values would likely increase, a trend seen time and again in communities that invest in trail access. And if some short car trips, say to the Brookfield Zoo or Walgreens on First Avenue, were replaced by bike rides, it would mean less traffic and a calmer Riverside. And as the leader of monthly community bike rides here in Riverside, I know firsthand what a beautiful place this is to ride a bike within our borders, but to bike anywhere beyond them, only for the intrepid few. A regional trail would change that. Residents have spoken. We want trails. In fact, 92% of respondents in the recent Parks and Rec survey named biking and walking trails as their top priority for outdoor amenities. And so I want to thank the village for pursuing this important and wanted project. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll be back for the e-bikes.
Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Lisa Peters, and I'm a Riverside resident and a leader of Ride Riverside as well. Tonight, I want to thank our village president, board of trustees, and the village staff for their commitment to improving safety in the community. I also want to express my support for Riverside's involvement in extending the Des Plaines River Trail. I understand that with Riverside's modest budget, every investment must be well justified, and the value of this project can be hard to quantify. But I think the benefits are clear, that active transportation infrastructure strengthens local economies, raises nearby home values, provides safe passage for people of all ages, and creates more opportunities for exercise and better health. Investing in the trail is a smart, high-return investment for all Riverside residents, not just trail users, and a meaningful step towards serving the common good. To borrow a line from the book Walkable City by Jeff Speck, he says, "I have yet to see a city do anything requested by a bike advocate that has not made that city better for everyone." So I look forward to seeing projects like this one and others move forward to make our community more accessible, connected, and safe for everyone. So thank you again for all of your hard work and your dedication to making Riverside a better place to live. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? So we'll go back to the board. I think we need to answer one last question regarding the Waubonsee path, location and materials. Any other comments? Should I just,
You mean about the options?
right,
I would propose taking option 2. We have a commitment, and it extends across First Avenue over there, so.
Yeah, I think we're doing our public duty by moving this forward. I think we have to take a fiduciary lens at this as well. I think we have to understand that this is not completely Riverside-centric, and there's other entities involved, and it makes it a lot more difficult. I am in complete agreement with Village Manager Francis that the Cook County conversation is probably going to go nowhere at this point, so we should take that off the board. Try. I will say try, but I don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen. I'm edging more towards option 1, and the reason why it was part of their plans. It's the path of least resistance, especially if we're looking for money from them. It would make the process go a lot easier. I understand it doesn't jive culturally with what we have, but I'm going to turn it to the planner Siren for a question. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No, of course.
So options 2 and 3, or I'm sorry, 1 and 3, wait, hold on, which ones are those? They're both 10 feet wide, expanding out, correct?
That's the proposal.
And it's just a matter of the material
That's
at this
correct.
point. So if we did move forward with one or the other, when this thing starts, what's the possibility of pulling an audible at any given point? Meaning that, oh, we said concrete, but now, we have to move to asphalt, or we started with asphalt and then we moved to concrete. How does that work within the process?
So I think we would want to nail down the material prior to bidding the project, so we have an idea what the construction costs are. So I think we'd be pretty early on in that process. We would want to know what the preference is. We can always, bid both materials and see what the costs are, with the preference being for exposed aggregate and asphalt being an option. That could be an option, but I'm not 100% positive we can do that.
I'm in favor of option 1 or 2.
Why would you want to wait?
We're not waiting.
No, why would you want to do an audible, you know what I'm saying?
I'm
Change it later, why?
it's part of the planning process. If we said that, there's a differentiation within the board, whether we want asphalt or concrete. So if we choose concrete, because it fits with the values of Riverside, but then we find out it's, over $1 million, can we change to asphalt? And vice versa? If we choose it, that's just an example on it.
I think I'm leaning towards option 1. First of all, because I think this is a little bit different situation than the rest of Riverside. Also because I'm thinking about if you're on the path and it changes materials, how is that going to work? I'm also thinking about maintenance. If we do have to go under the path, it's a lot more complicated with exposed aggregate than it is with asphalt. I think for cost efficiency and for consistency along the path, it makes sense to me to go with asphalt. While I understand the exposed aggregate concrete and why we have that, I think in this instance, it's adding cost to a project where we're not going to see a huge benefit, especially it being on the other side of the street, us still having it be a part of another path and connecting to it. It doesn't make sense to me to double or triple the cost of the project in this particular instance. Although I do have to say that option 3, I do find option 3 slightly intriguing because it's not a particularly busy road, that I could also see that working, but that's not necessarily, I feel like that's a little bit, it's not exactly creating a path in that instance. But to my mind, 1 or 3, if 4 is off the table, 1 or 3 are the two that make the most sense to me.
I'm in favor of 1 at this point. It's the path of least resistance and it stays consistent. And I think it's a little more tolerable because, like you said, it is a very unique spot along the way.
My concern about option 3 is just eliminating on-street parking for those residents. Now we're directly impacting our residents in a negative way.
Are they aware of this project? Have we reached out?
Well, we have not reached out to them at this point.
This is too nebulous right now. So Director Siren, I have a question about the maps, the GIS maps. I don't think you created them, but you talked with some of the people. We were talking about the red line showing the proposed locations. If I'm looking at the map correctly, they're proposing to go through Riverside Lawn. Is that your understanding too?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Others?
Well, I would almost rather see the option 3 because otherwise we're, ripping out and landfilling an already existing exposed aggregate concrete sidewalk. And then spending money to replace it with something twice as wide that there's gonna have to be a maintenance agreement over. I don't like the idea of waiving off on the standard for the sidewalks and paths in that village-owned landmark designated area. So if 4 is not an option, my vote would be 3.
I'm in favor of 1.
Trustee Mateo?
Well, I'm still in favor of 4. If they're going to try to put it through Riverside Lawn, I don't see how they can make the case that they can't put it on the west side of First Avenue. But if they persist, as I am persisting, I would do 1 or 3.
So I heard at least 3 trustees are okay with the asphalt in the right-of-way. For purposes of moving this along, even though I don't vote, I would be okay with the asphalt too. As I said, I'm one of the biggest, and Manager Francis can remember this from 10 years ago, I was as big a proponent of the exposed aggregate as anybody.
Yeah, you were.
I was very outspoken. And I haven't changed that perspective one iota. I still believe every sidewalk we put in should be exposed to aggregate. I don't think of this as a sidewalk, though. It's a pathway, and there's a difference. It just happens to be, and again, I go back to the rest of this regional trail is asphalt with a stripe down the middle, and for us to change that. And finally, the last thing I would say is I'm worried about how this affects our partners in this deal, how they will perceive that. If we are, my guess is they'll say, fine, then you pay for it. That's what I would say.
Right.
So I think at this point, we have at least, barely a consensus or a majority consensus of accepting the 10-foot wide asphalt. Although we still, I would encourage Manager Francis to continue to talk about on the forest preserve property. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe there's a compromise where, it can go onto theirs, but maybe a portion has to go onto ours because of how it affects their restoration project.
Agreed.
So, unless there's any other comments for the trustees, that will be our direction to staff.
Thank you for
Thank you.
kickstarting the
Thank you.
conversations.
Next on the agenda, under pending business, a resolution authorizing the village manager to create a purchase order in the amount of $343,802 for Christopher B. Burke Engineering to provide professional engineering services as part of Phase 2 of the lead service line replacement program. Director Tab, your favorite subject.
My favorite. Good evening, everyone. So this would normally be on the consent, but thought it appropriate to kind of give a mini update as to where we are with the lead service line replacement. We're proposing to do 400 this year. To date, we've done 260, and that's in conjunction with everything that village manager Francis mentioned earlier with the sewer separation, the water mains, the other sidewalk. So we're doing good. I hope we don't get, frozen out with the weather. We're now moving into the first division from the second division. Hopefully, because we're not on top of each other with the other contractors, we'll be able to speed it up a little bit. And we'll see, fingers crossed. So this particular proposal from our engineering firm is for Phase 2. So we're in Phase 1 right now. Phase 2 is proposed for next year. It would be another $4 million phase or project for approximately 400 services. This proposal, while comprehensive, is to start the application process for that $4 million from the IEPA of the zero interest loan, similar to what we have right now. Should we not get that money, we would only be on hook for the application process and whatever supporting documents that Burke would have to put together for the application. I happened to be at a conference today where the IEPA was there, actually talking about lead service lines, and for the zero interest loan funds that they have available, they can't give them away. So there's plenty of money for us to take, should we so choose it. Obviously, their funding, they split between forgivable principal or forgivable loans, and then there's a zero interest component. Obviously, the free money is more popular, but we don't currently qualify for that. So zero interest loans is the next best thing, and they have plenty of those funds available. But this is for, like I said, the comprehensive project. Should we get that money, and if for some reason they say no, which is very unlikely after speaking with them today, we'd just be on the hook for the application process. So, if there's any questions, more than happy to answer.
Questions for Director Tab? Thank
Does
you.
the 260 include First Division?
No, we've done 260. That is basically second division and HERC.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any public comments on this item? No board discussion. Would someone like to make a motion approving the resolution?
Motion.
Motion and a second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Cost?
Aye.
Trustee Marshalska?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
New business, resolution to approve a memorandum of understanding for baseball field renovation projects with Riverside Little League.
Good evening again. Before you is a resolution regarding a memorandum of understanding between the Village of Riverside and Riverside Little League for the scope and funding of field renovation projects at Indian Gardens and Big Ballpark. This MOU will provide detail and funding expectations regarding the proposed projects for both parties. It has been reviewed by legal counsel. The Parks and Recreation Department has a long-standing relationship with Little League, and we currently have a field maintenance agreement in place. We have coordinated other projects, including storage sheds and rooftops on every dugout. These proposed projects are a continuation of that partnership and will provide improved field conditions for the community.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Malchiotti? Any public comments on this item?
I have one quick question, just more for the public. I'm assuming the Parks and Rec Board has voted on this?
They
and
have.
is- And is
They
in
were in
favor?
favor of moving forward due to the funding commitment from Riverside Little League.
Do you know what the vote was?
I don't recall off the top of
Okay.
my head.
Just wondering if you knew offhand if it was unanimous.
Yeah, there was no dissension.
Okay.
They were, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
No public comment, no further questions, discussion. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the resolution?
Is this the memo of understanding we're approving at this point?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Cost?
Aye.
Trustee Marshalska?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. A resolution authorizing the village manager to waive competitive bidding and execute an agreement with Midwest Field Solutions for field renovation projects in the amount not to exceed $78,250 for the Village of Riverside, Illinois. Director Malchiotti.
This is the details of the project that the memorandum of understanding would cover. As you know, keeping fields safe and in good shape is the primary goal of the department, and they were also highlighted in our master plan. In addition to the field maintenance agreement with Riverside Little League, the department purchased a new field tractor last year to better address field conditions. We also work closely with the Public Works Department to maintain field conditions. These projects will not only enhance our current efforts, they will address some potential safety issues and update the fields to current trends and appearances. The majority of the funding will come from Riverside Little League, with the department contributing to the projects in order to continue our commitment to improve field conditions.
Thank you. Questions, comments for Director Malchiotti?
My only comment would be that this came up a lot in the field, in the Parks and Rec survey, and this is a very important topic to many families in Riverside, so it's good that the Little League is willing to front most of the money for this.
As a former Little League board member and coach, I agree. Any public comments on this item? If there's no further board comments or questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Cost?
Aye.
Trustee Marshalska?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Announcement of public hearing for fiscal year 2026 hearing to be held on November 6, 2025.
Thank you. The Village of Riverside will hold a public hearing for the proposed 2026 Village and Library budget on November 6, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. in Room 4 of Riverside Township Hall. A copy of the draft budget will be available for public inspection at Village Hall on October 29, 2025. Public notice will also be published in the October 29th edition of the Landmark newspaper. No formal board action is required. Public hearing on the proposed budget is scheduled for November 6, 2025, and final adoption is scheduled for December 4th of 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Zavala? Any public comments? Someone like to make a motion? I'm sorry, this is simply an announcement, no action necessary by the board. Next on the agenda, discussion of recommended fiscal year 2026 budget. Director Zavala.
Thank you. Included in your packet tonight is a proposed 2026 budget. This process started with the 10-year capital improvement plan and the 5-year financial forecast. Staff is happy to present a balanced budget for board's review. The budget is still being refined and has been updated to reflect the most recent data received to date. All department heads are in attendance to answer any questions you may have. Please stop me at any time if you do have a question, and we could answer it. A quick review of the revenues and expenses are shown on the PowerPoint. You can see the revenues are not increasing by much. The grocery tax revenue has been removed from the budget. Included in the positive budget is, as it currently stands, is $40,000 for the potential amusement tax for streaming. Staff is currently gathering more information and data to present to the board in the very near future, in the upcoming months. You can see $12,577,840, and revenues are expected to increase in the budget $12,592,164. The expenditures, $12,036,975, and increasing $12,551,721. Next slide. A level compression on the budget that we speak about every year is funding the police pension fund. This number has been increasing at a larger pace than CPI, which limits the property tax levy. The levy increase this year was 2.9%, and the recommended police funding contribution was 5.1%. We do not levy for the increase over CPI. What this means is the rest of the general fund budget is decreased to account for that difference. These are two of our largest expenditures right here, our public liability insurance and police pension contribution. You notice here also, we're seeing a larger IRMA annual insurance contribution due to a few larger claim years. The contribution is derived from the claims over the last 5 years. And we can expect this number to decrease when a larger claim year falls off, but that's not happening this year. There are some budget items that require board guidance. There is a need for storage addition at Public Works to accommodate equipment currently stored outdoors and items used for crack sealing of streets and thermoplastic stripping. These services were previously contracted out to vendors, but now are completed by Public Works. The storage facility will also serve as a temporary storage for any equipment housed in the youth center. Staff is asking for guidance as to include this project into the 2026 budget. Estimated funding would be $300,000, would be from the existing facilities bond and split between the water and sewer fund. Williams Architect would complete the design. The project would come back to the board for approval once the design and final cost estimate were completed.
Does the board want to take these questions one at a time? Comments, questions regarding the storage addition at Public Works facility? Any questions, support for it?
There seems to be a need,
Yeah, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah.
Youth facility.
but it was not in the CIP previously, correct?
No, it was not. This would be an issue to consider. It would be funded with the current existing facilities bond that we still have, $1 million. It was included into the financial packet in the packet. So it would be funded half from that bond and half from water sewer fund.
Thank you.
So, is this an addition or a separate building?
It would be in addition to.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'm
For those listening at home, the answer is it's an addition to the existing building.
Yeah, so as Yvette mentioned, we have equipment that we store outside. Obviously, that's not best practice to store equipment outside if you can avoid it. We've moved some of our normal equipment to the outside because we brought a bunch of contractual stuff that we normally spend money on in-house to do. Crack sealing, thermoplastic, pothole patching, so all of that requires large trailers that we want to keep inside just because we don't want them to become weathered and have issues down the road. So there's that component of it, and then if the public safety building were to move forward, For those that toured the youth center, there's quite a bit of stuff in there. And that ranges from, spare ambulance to antique fire vehicles, a lot of files for the village, among, the police department stores their vehicles down there, any kind of, other equipment that they might have. So that needs to go somewhere in the event that building's torn down. Once you tear the building down, there is going to be a year and a half-ish, probably build process where it has to go somewhere, and this would be the proposed site. You would take all of that stuff, be able to keep it under roof so it's not sitting out in the weather. And then once that building is built, would shift back over, then once again would be, the primary purpose would be the storage for public works. The $300,000, as Vet mentioned, that is again a cost estimate because we're now just beginning to engage Williams Architect in the design and cost estimating portion of that. So that's going to fluctuate. This is going to be a no frills type thing. It's going to basically be a concrete pad with a similar material for those that are familiar with our public works building. It's the corrugated metal siding, and that was, if you remember earlier in the spring, there was a amendment to an ordinance to allow that material for the public works building in particular. So we're kind of building on those previous meetings.
Thank you. So I believe there's consensus to move forward with the storage addition.
Thank you. One item I wanted to point out that I missed previously is the $40,443. That's a net surplus at this moment. The next item for board consideration is possible expansion of the Central Business District grant that is allocated for 2026 in the CIP of $20,000. Staff is asking for guidance as to expand the grant to include dumpster enclosures and art signage such as murals. This topic was discussed by EDC at their last meeting, and the commission was supportive of expanding the grant and asked staff to assist with promoting if the village board approved.
I like the idea of murals a lot.
I think so. This is Trustee Evans.
Yeah, that sounds good. I was wondering if, I just wanted to also ask if we would be able to consider at some point in the future providing these types of resources to the businesses along Harlem. I feel like those businesses really could use would they come from the street fund?
So we actually already have a program for any businesses that are within our business district, whether 1, 2, or 3, there's automatically an ongoing program that's available. They have to complete an application, but it's open and available. There are certain requirements, some conditions that must be met as it relates to that, but it's an open opportunity for anyone to apply for it, and then ultimately it would come to the village board. And so any of that type of funding would directly come out of the sales tax within those business districts and would draw down that fund balance.
So this CBD fund is in addition to,
So that's separate, yes.
so they get a little bit more downtown?
No, actually, if you're in one of the business districts along Harlem Avenue, you potentially get more than the central business district because they're self-sustaining, because they're collecting that 1% business district tax.
So I know that we've assisted the gas station with the R-Mart. Have we assisted any of the other buildings? Maybe Cubano?
We did give them, for their outdoor seating, we did give them a grant a couple of years ago. Dr. Noramati, he'll be coming back for a grant. We've been in an ongoing dialogue with him for bike parking and some other things on his site. So there's a list of different items that are eligible under our business district plan for reimbursable or a grant that apply. And so we have an application and everything, and we can certainly do some additional business engagement, especially when we send out the business license renewals to those businesses, letting them know that that's an option that's available to them.
Okay, thank you.
So the consensus is to move forward with that in the budget?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item, the village currently has an ERP system called BSNA that is premise-based, which requires a server and maintenance from the village's IT vendor. It is anticipated that the on-premise model will soon become obsolete, and the village will be forced to move to the cloud-based platform. Staff has gathered a quote from BSNA to switch now, if the board approves so, to obtain cost savings. It's anticipated that when it's obsolete and everyone is forced to move, that the price will be set and there will be no negotiating. The cloud-based version is more advanced than the on-premise version and will benefit the employees and the residents that use BSNA to make payments or use for building items such as permits. The village would also eliminate the need to maintain a separate server for the software and the IT maintenance cost. The cost is split into phases of the implementation. Staff is asking for guidance to include this expense into the CIP budget for next year, if it is feasible from a budgetary standpoint. The project will also come before the board again for approval of the contract and the purchase order. If the contract would come, the contract would probably have to be signed by the end of this year. On signing the contract, the total due at contract signing is $29,400. That would be payable this year. And the second, third, and fourth installment will be payable next year. The total project is proposed $112,000. That's including $29,400 for project management and implementation planning, and implementation and training of $50,400. I do not anticipate Village Hall staff requiring that amount of training. They are very self-sufficient, and I believe that number will be greatly reduced. Staff is asking for guidance to include this in the CIP if we could fit it in.
I think it makes most sense to do it.
Obsolete and faster permits? Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
All right, I think I have one more. Lastly, the Parks and Rec Board discussed the possibility of renting the Riverside Brookfield High School pool for resident use. Based on the number of capital projects budgeted for 2026 and the estimated annual cost of $15,000 for the rental and $3,000 of staff to manage the pool passes and supervise, of $18,000 total, the Parks and Rec Board decided it was not within the budgetary constraint of the department. Other capital projects would have to be deferred. Parks and Recreation staff are exploring other options at the moment and has reached out to the local YMCA. Staff would like the board to discuss the possibility of renting the pool for resident use and provide guidance as to include or not include in the 2026 budget.
But they're looking at other options, though, right? You
Yeah.
know what you just said? Okay.
So it was discussed at the staff level and at the Parks and Rec Board level. It's certainly an intriguing issue because we realize it's an amenity that we're lacking. It's the funding that is the challenging part at $18,000, and something that we wouldn't want to offer and then roll back. So really, we're committing in perpetuity without knowing what the usage would be. After reaching out to North Riverside, they have an agreement where in exchange for their baseball and softball fields, they get free pool time, which is what started this conversation. It was, well, why do they have it? Why don't we? We don't have that agreement in place. We would have to fund it. But after reaching out to them, their usage is very low. So with that in mind, the idea of committing to at least, because we don't know if there would be increases on RB's part over the years, committing to $18,000 without any kind of funding mechanism in place for that would definitely defer some major capital projects that we already have scheduled, such as playgrounds and pickleball courts. And so I reached out to North Riverside. We don't know if this is a possibility. I haven't read their agreement to see if there is some way to co-opt that time, since they're not fully utilizing it. I'm exploring that as an option. And I'm waiting to hear back from PAV YMCA to see if we could get pool time there at a lesser cost.
And until we get those answers, I'm not ready to commit $18,000.
Yeah, I was going to ask if North Riverside is charging their residents at all to do this, or the North Riverside, do they need a pass?
They need a pass, but there's no charge. Since they get it free of charge, they don't pass it along. They are covering the cost of that pool supervisor, though.
If our Riverside residents who wanted to take advantage of that could pay a non-resident fee for the pass through North Riverside, would that be an option?
It would be. What I would actually propose, and I haven't had these detailed discussions, is perhaps the department covering the cost of that pool manager, cover that employee's cost. So they would, North Riverside would have no cost on their end. We would be able to, our residents would be able to use it at a reduced rate.
That's a good
I
suggestion.
think these are good things to pursue then. So hey, keep having those conversations and come back if you need us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So consensus is not to put that in the budget for now, but to continue to look at it.
Thank you. That concludes the budget proposal, and the next item will be the hearing on November 6th with final adoption on December 4th.
Thank you. Any further questions for Director Zavala? Any public comments on this budget discussion? There's none. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an ordinance authorizing and providing for the issue of not to exceed $4 million waterworks and sewerage revenue bonds, junior lien IEPA of the Village of Riverside, Cook County, Illinois, for the purpose of paying the cost of improvements to the waterworks and sewerage system of said village, prescribing all the details of said bonds, providing for the collection, segregation, and distribution of the revenues of said system, for the payment of said bonds, and providing for the sale of said bonds to the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. Is this Director Zavala? Yes.
Thank you, President Pollock, for that mouthful. The ordinance has been printed out for you because there was a typo on today's meeting date, which is today, October 16th, 2025. This is the final ordinance needed to accept the $4 million zero-interest loan from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency for lead service line replacements that was authorized on October 17th of last year. Notice is given in the Landmark newspaper as well. For this bond, we will need to approve it in order to request reimbursement from IEPA for total construction costs that we have incurred to date.
Thank you. Any questions from trustees? Any public comment? Could I have a motion to approve the ordinance? And a
Move to
second?
approve.
Second.
Second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Cost?
Aye.
Trustee Marshawska?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Motion's approved, ordinance approved. Discussion regarding e-bikes and scooters. Manager Francis.
Thank you. It'll be both myself and Director Buckley handling this one, but just to provide an overview, as many communities are enacting different ordinances as it relates to e-bikes and scooters, Director Buckley and I have been having extensive conversations over the last several months about what seems appropriate for Riverside. And so we've summarized, and there's additional surveys that we were able to access that we've provided to the board as options of what we can and can't do. One thing that we are seeing most commonly done at this point in time is local communities adopting IVC into their village code and then adding an administrative adjudication component. And why do we think that's valuable, right? Because police can already cite residents, children, whomever, for violations related to e-bikes or e-scooters. Well, the value in having at the local level is that we can manage it versus sending someone to Maybrook to then have to handle it there, or if it is someone that is just turned 16 and they get this type of citation, then it could actually go against their driving record. And so it would seem appropriate for us to, so that this is kind of, can be a multifaceted discussion of, do we want to just take the first step and adopt both e-scooters and e-bikes as it's currently drafted for the Illinois Vehicle Code under our village code, We can do that. We can do that and make some tweaks to it based on what the Village of Riverside wants. So one example is under Illinois Vehicle Code, you have to be 18 years old to ride an e-scooter, but you can be 16 years old to drive a bicycle and an e-bike. An e-bike that is class 3 e-bike. And so if the board wanted to, you could decide for e-scooters that you want people to be 16 years of age. What we are realizing is that as it relates to e-bikes and e-scooters, many parents may not realize that if they are of a certain level, that they actually cannot be driven by children that are younger than 16 years of age, that don't have a driver's license. And so that really becomes part of our public education campaign, because we are seeing children riding these e-bikes and e-scooters that are under the age of 16. I don't believe that when they're being sold that this disclosure is being made, and so therefore residents are unaware of this. And so that becomes part of a larger campaign. Additionally, one of the other things that we've seen in different communities, LaGrange Park is a great example of where if you have higher speed traffic, they're precluding e-bikes or e-scooters on the street. So where it's 35 miles or higher, those aren't permitted to be driven on those streets. And so there's a lot of different options for the board to kind of look at this and unravel, what the preferences are. I think from Director Buckley and my perspective, the first phase that we see as being needed is just adopting the Illinois Vehicle Code into our local code, and then we can make tweaks or modifications because this is a moving target. I think the state, as Attorney Pickrell had mentioned to us earlier today, is looking at making modifications. I don't know if there's anything pending during the veto session or if it won't be until next year. But there could be modifications that are made, which then if we adopt the Illinois Vehicle Code, we would have to make those modifications based on whatever changes the state makes as well. A lot of different communities over the past year and a half have been adopting just the Illinois Vehicle Code to try to stay on top of it so that they can adjudicate these different issues locally versus having to go to the county courthouse. Anything additional?
Pretty good.
Thank you, Director Buckley.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question. So what kind of issues does the department see of these e-bikes being on our roads right now?
Just the reckless driving part of it. Kids that aren't obeying the rules of the road. Even a couple adults I've seen, but it's mostly the younger kids that are out on these types of bikes, and they are driving very fast, weaving in out of traffic, not stopping at stop signs. I've had a couple lately that have actually taken off on us, and obviously we're not going to go chasing after them, because technically that's a pursuit. They can be arrested for that. And a couple of them didn't want to wave with their full hand, only used one finger when we were going to stop them. That just shows how these kids are acting.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it that way, but that's what we've been experiencing. So having something that, and they know we can't chase them. That's the funny part about it. They know what they can get away with. And a lot of times they head right to the swinging bridge because they know we can't drive our cars over it. So, and then they're into the woods and gone. So just having another tool to help us to enforce some of those things. And our goal isn't to go out there and stop every kid that's on a bike. We want to, practice the safe practices. We want to educate the kids on how to ride them properly and obey the laws and things like that. So the education part of it is going to be the biggest component of this. But at the end of the day, we want to have something where if we need to issue a citation, we have more control of it here with our adjudication. But if the accident or the occurrence is severe enough, we would then write on a state citation also and put that into our normal court call at the courthouse at Maywork.
All right, I'm in favor of that. Yes. Yeah.
Other trustees before we
Yeah, I think one of my concerns with the e-bikes and e-scooters is I've seen people on the sidewalks, and when people are walking, running, little kids are doing stuff, these e-bikes, the lower class ones go 10 to 20 miles an hour. They can go up to 60 miles an hour. And so when, if you're a little kid and you're just playing on the sidewalk and you get hit by something going 10 to 20 miles an hour, that's a serious accident. The other thing I'm noticing is that very few people are wearing helmets while they're doing this. And we're talking about, again, going speeds that would cause a catastrophic accident if they fall off, hit something. This is, it's funny, I was just at a college campus over the weekend, and it is a huge menace on college campuses because these things can go really fast depending on what class you get. And, luckily those are 18-year-olds and up driving them, but I've seen kids around town that look to be 8 to 10 years old scooting around on these things, and it's not a good idea. I do like the idea of the e-bikes for adults who would like to do that as opposed to drive and things like. I think that there is a place for them, but I think that there's a significant safety concern with allowing them on sidewalks, with allowing them. I'm even have concerned about allowing them on school property. I know you have to walk a bike when you are getting close to school property, but it doesn't seem like people think that these fall into the same categories as bikes or vehicles when it comes to traffic violations, stop signs, anything like that. So, yeah, I think this is a huge concern.
And with regard to bike safety, because obviously it's a big thing for us, we go to all the schools annually, sometimes a little bit more than that, to educate all the students. We do daily patrols around the schools, and part of our detail when we do that is to stop kids that are not riding properly, educate them on the proper safe use of their bike. But when you add a motor to it, it just makes it that much more worse.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things we're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent those accidents or those occurrences from happening where it's not going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Manager Francis.
So currently, as it stands, as I mentioned, the agenda history sheet, individuals aren't allowed to bike on our sidewalks in the central business district or along Harlem Avenue on that sidewalk. So basically in our business districts, bikes, you have to walk or you have to be in the street. And so we can certainly do that as it relates to e-bikes as well. Putting in that requirement. A lot of communities have whatever are the requirements for, regular bikes, e-bikes that are class 1 and 2 apply. And then if you're class 3, you have to be on the street, regardless. And so that can also be a component that we incorporate as well.
My concern is that on an e-bike, you can get a class 1 or 2 going 28 miles an hour. 28 miles an hour on a sidewalk is.
Well, class 1 should only go.
You're right.
Class 3 can go up to 28 miles per hour.
Right. So my concern is that when we start getting to these, you can't, majority of people cannot bike that fast. My concern is that when we're talking about kids running around and stuff like that and playing on sidewalks, dogs and sidewalks, you don't have enough time to stop at the speeds that these can go if you're on a sidewalk. Especially with a community that we have that's a very outdoor community, I have a big concern with them being on the sidewalks.
We have gotten complaints, specifically Swan Pond has been one of the areas, but just sidewalks in general about the e-scooters and e-bikes.
Yeah. I actually tend to agree with Trustee Koss about the use of e-bikes on sidewalks at all. I'm looking at the other municipalities listed in this chart, and it seems like the vast majority are not distinguishing between the type of e-bike, but they're saying no e-bikes on sidewalks, period. So that is something that I would be okay with here. I think, you know, if the goal is to try to have education about what we're doing in the community and what rules are applied, you know, that needs to be directed towards adults and children alike, so that they know that if parents are going to purchase something like this for their child, that their child is going to be in the street with it. And if their child is going to be in the street with something that goes at that speed, then they're going, you know, parents are maybe going to be more likely to want them to wear a helmet and to insist on it and to, you know, maybe take the whole process a little more serious.
We can come back to the board, but I think there's public comment on this item.
Okay, so you guys bring up a lot of good points, and I think it's really the failure of the state to regulate these things, and that's why we're seeing this huge list of all of these ordinances. So the one thing that I've seen in some towns is that they conflate these out-of-class vehicles, which are called now e-motos. We don't even have a real good word for them because they're so new. And they're also, I guess, like electric mini bikes. And so sometimes they say no e-bikes allowed at all. And I rode here on an e-bike with my son on the back, and we can go up to 20 miles per hour. That being said, I don't do that on the sidewalk. And so the sidewalks, I think that makes sense to me, you know, not having fast bikes, because I think the sidewalks are more for a kid going 5 to 8 miles per hour and somebody's walking at 3 miles per hour. That's not that big of a difference. But if it's 20 miles an hour, that could, you know, cause an injury if somebody gets hit. So I do think that we should make sure that we're considering those differences. And I just like that it would be a balanced approach, that we're keeping everybody safe, but we're also supporting what for me is a very family-friendly, inexpensive option. And I think to consider that e-bikes for some people are maybe the only way they can go far somewhere because they can't afford gas or maintenance on their car or all the things that come with owning a car. So just keep that in consideration as well as safety. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Back to the board. I think there's several questions. One is, which I think is going to be an easy one, is do we want to turn this into local adjudication?
Yes.
Yes. I figured that. I agree. And there was some talk about prohibiting electric scooters, bikes of all kinds from any public sidewalk. Do we want to go there?
Also,
Yes.
And then is, perhaps the other question for now is, do we want to adopt Illinois Vehicle Code for these into our municipal code? I suppose that would then give us the ability to take it through local adjudication, right? It's in
Also,
our
yeah.
municipal code. So we want to do that. Is there anything else specific we want to do now? I think this is an ongoing discussion as this regulatory atmosphere evolves and the technology evolves as well. Is there anything more we want to talk about right now or give direction to staff? Just what we've said already will require an ordinance to come back to the board. Is there anything else we want to talk about now?
One of the other things that I would like to discuss, it doesn't have to be now, but as we talk about the e-bikes and scooters that do go faster than, I mean, again, 28 miles an hour is more than our 25 mile per hour speed limit. And, you know, especially when you start talking about some of the scooters that they have available now, I think we should probably talk about an age restriction, you know, and things like that for some of these. You know, I do think there's a big difference between what she was saying about an adult who's riding these and you know, maybe using it for transportation versus, you know, an 11-year-old who's like, I can get to school in less than a minute now right? I think we need to, I think that needs to be something that we look at, and maybe that's something that Chief Buckley can look into a little bit about what you're seeing and what you've, what you think might be needed here. I think I would love your opinion on that as we move forward.
Yeah, I can chime in too. I think one of the issues here is one of definitions, because you're exactly right.
Right.
Because we're talking about e-bikes, but not all e-bikes are the same.
Right.
Some are considered low-speed e-bikes, it's up to 10 miles an hour. Then there's up to 20, I think that's level 2, and then it goes up from there. And as I believe beyond level 3, those are just considered motor vehicles under the Illinois Vehicle Code. So at a certain point, I mean, when does an e-bike become an electric motorcycle? There's a definition that I'm not aware of off the top of my head, but I believe it's above a level, how we've defined a level 3. So when we come back to you, we're going to define with specificity
Great.
what's in the category and what's out of the category. One of the issues with the current regulations with the state is it leaves certain, it regulates low-speed e-bikes, which is 0 to 10 miles an hour, and it leaves a gap from 10 to wherever a motorcycle begins. And so our regulations could say, basically, everything up to a motorcycle is an e-bike, and we're regulating it this way. And so it making sense and making it simple for everybody, those definitions is my task. And I'll make it easy for you so you can all understand. Well, basically, as a concept, these low-speed e-bikes, as is being discussed here, they're often regulated just like bicycles, except they are, as you point out, more dangerous. So it is very common to have them banned on sidewalks. A lot of communities our communities are discussing that as well. So one of our goals here is we're not going to have a gap between what we regulate vis-a-vis low-speed, moderate-speed bikes,
Right.
and then motor vehicles. It will either be directly regulated by us via our ordinances or by the Illinois Vehicle Code by a definition that this is a motor vehicle. So if they take that e-bike on the sidewalk, for example, it may be outside the purview of our ordinances, but it would be the equivalent of driving a motorcycle on the sidewalk, which is a violation of the Illinois Vehicle Code.
Great, okay.
One of the easiest ways to remember this, because I've been reading a lot of this stuff, e-bikes have pedals that you can actually pedal to assist the motor, or the motor assists the pedaling, or they have a throttle. As you're pedaling, you can use the throttle to propel yourself. But their speeds are under 28 miles per hour
Right.
for all 3 classes, even though Class 1 is up to 10, Class 2 is up to 20. Anything over that is considered a motor vehicle by Illinois Vehicle Code.
Okay.
There's also e-motos out there now that don't have pedals. They're like little motorcycles, but they're bikes. They're built like a bike without pedals, look like a little motorcycle, that are powered by electric, that have the capability of doing well over 28 miles per hour. Those are considered motorcycles according to the Illinois Vehicle Code. So they're supposed to have insurance, they're supposed to have license plates, and abide by all the regular rules of the road. Driver has to have a license.
And I didn't even know those existed until you pointed those out today.
Yeah.
So I may have to.
This is changing rapidly.
But there's
a
also
lot.
the scooters, which are the, like
The scooters are no.
the sort of L shape with the 2 smaller wheels.
The e-scooters, correct.
Right, those are also motorized, and those are
Yep.
also, I mean, I've seen kids screaming down the sidewalk on those.
Right.
So I don't know where those fall in this, but that's
Well-
also something that we need to,
They're in here also, they're either a low-speed e-scooter or a high-speed e-scooter. Low-speed has, the electric can go up to 20 miles per hour, and the high-speed can go up to 28 miles per hour. I don't know if I want to be doing 28 on that little scooter.
well, I
Or
mean,
those-
especially if you're talking about without a helmet.
Yeah.
I'll just say, as Manager Francis pointed out, both the technology is improving and the law is likely changing on this. So we will do what we can to regulate as best we can, but do not be surprised if you see us coming back in the future saying,
We need to
we've
amend.
got a new type of bike out there,
Okay.
we're amending it or something like that. We got a new law.
And it won't be till next year. It's not in the veto session this year to adjust these. It'll probably be in next year.
If we're looking to draft an ordinance adopting the Illinois Vehicle Code, then do you want to keep what it currently states as 18 years of age that people have to be in order to do an e-scooter, or do you want that to be 16 years of age?
I think 16 is fair. That's the age where they can drive a car.
Can we be more restrictive than the state? Or
We-
more lenient, I should say?
That's actually less restrictive.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
less restrictive, that's what I meant.
That was just when she said that. I was just gonna, let me check. Usually we cannot be, but I'm gonna make sure that we can do that before I,
Okay.
you know,
I saw a couple of communities that did adjust the age, and so,
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
Our hope is they're going to be going through driver's ed programs and things like that at that age, at least being educated on the proper use of them.
That didn't make any sense to me either,
Yeah.
that you can drive a car
Right.
at 16, but not an e-scooter?
Because I don't think you're allowed to, you can't have a motorcycle until you're 18. Is that,
That's correct. You can have a motorcycle until you're 18. You can have a driver's license when you're 16.
but you
I believe.
can't
Okay, so
receive a
there's some logic
motorcycle
there, I guess.
license? So that might be why the scooters
I did not know that.
are considered part of,
Right,
yeah.
makes sense.
So, two other items, just to at least get a good draft to you, is there are a number of communities that are requiring single rider only on e-bikes. Because yes, there are some,
I like that idea.
and then there are different ordinance prohibiting e-bikes from towing anything.
I also like that idea too.
But two issues.
Well, wait a minute,
Yeah.
but what if you're talking about a trailer, like,
Right.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say, like, what if you have your,
So there are some e-bikes that are built with a seat for a person to ride in behind the actual rider. They're out there, they're actually pretty popular, especially with younger kids. There are those trailers that people use to tow their kids in behind their normal bike right now. So I think our concern a little bit on that one was, do we want kids on a skateboard holding onto a rope as their friends pulling them on their e-bike?
No.
Which is dangerous, right? So we're trying to balance those things also and make sure that whatever we're doing, we're gonna be able to justify and say, you know, not okay for that, but okay for that.
Yeah,
And we could say something like no towing, except for like we had one of those little.
Approved and authorized.
Yeah, approved,
Yeah.
authorized. I had one of those little buggies for my kids in the back.
Right.
That you strap
Yeah.
on. A manufactured, product which is intended for that purpose.
Right.
Which has satisfied all safety standards, something like that.
yes.
Did you have one more?
And can we
Nope.
put something in there about not on sidewalks? Are we?
They're
Yes.
all not on sidewalks.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just, all right.
Anything else? I think
What
we
is
have-
the plan to educate the public?
So we'll be working with the school districts, because they'll be key in this for education and outreach, and then we'll be putting together different materials to push out on social media or newsletter. And we can even talk to Riverside TV about creating some videos on education as well, because I think that would be helpful, looking at different methods to reach different residents. Because really the key piece, as we've discussed, is reaching the parents.
Right.
Yes.
So that they're aware whether or not their child should be or legally can be riding this bicycle. Because, as we stated, until the state law catches up with where things are at, stores are just gonna sell these e-bikes, these scooters. It's an adult, they have a credit card, they pay. They're not asking if, your 12-year-old is riding it. They probably don't care if your 12-year-old's riding it. At some point, my guess is there will probably be a registration mechanism at the state level. And then we may have to do some type of registration at the local level. I don't know that we're there yet. I would say we take this incrementally. But that would be our initial approach, is to do as much outreach as we can to parents and families.
Sounds good, thank
In
you.
addition to the schools, I think it might be beneficial to talk to the different parent-teacher organizations, PTAs, PTOs, FSAs, things like that, that can also reach out to parents for education.
Staff has direction. Thank you for that. We do have need for an executive session this evening to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee or legal counsel. The board will not reconvene and no final action will take place. I would ask for a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned.